I think expedition cruising opens up the idea of cruising to people who have never cruised before and who may not think that traditional cruising is for them, but expedition cruising, that way of cruising, which is the access to remote areas where you can't get other ways, that focus on nature and a focus on being active, maybe appeals to them in a way. So it opens up a whole, cruising to a whole new audience of people.
We often get people on the ships that will say, I'm not a cruiser, I don't like cruising, I've never done this, because they are independent travelers, they're independently minded, they've always done it themselves, but we happen to be going to a place they want to go to. And then they like the system, they like the setup, they like how the operations work.
I bet they like coming back on board a seaborne ship and finding lovely wine and lovely service and lovely food.
You don't have to look for a hotel, you don't have to look for a restaurant,
It's
and
right
it's
there.
really good.
You've already unpacked.
Exactly.
And
It's
the
all
dinner
there.
is delicious.
all
And the
of
caviar
that.
is
Right.
right. And the caviar,
Exactly.
Seaboard's famous caviar
Yes.
service, right?
Yes.
So all of that, so you get really everything. What more? That's kind of my dreamy dream
Yes.
world, right?
Yeah.
And I think more people as
Luxury and adventure, and you don't
Right?
have to compromise one or the other.
Yes. So I have a question to ask you. I think a lot of people also consider, they say, well, you know, like I'm not super active and I don't run 10 kilometers a day. And, you know, can I go on an expedition ship? Because I'm not like super athletic. And what would you say to that?
I would say that is another myth of expedition cruising, that people think it's quote unquote hardcore travel.
Right.
And it just isn't. We have teams on board that want to make an experience available to everyone. So we often get people from a variety of age levels, a variety of mobility levels, and we can make these places accessible to many and most of them. It's not hardcore. We will offer something, perhaps a landing in a remote location where maybe we have a hike, maybe we have a short nature walk, and maybe we also have a Zodiac cruise.
Right.
So people can pick and choose what fits their interest and their abilities best.
And their comfort levels.
Their comfort level, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Are there any other myths? What are the questions you most frequently get asked?
I think there is a myth that it's only going to appeal to a certain age group. I think there's a myth that it's something that you either do when you're young and fit, or you do when you're older and you have the time and money. And one thing that I would say is that expedition travel is very good for multi-generational families.
That's a good idea.
Because you have so much variety within what we can offer, everybody gets to do what they want, and then they come together at the end of the day.
And there's a certain universality. What age group doesn't love to see the whales or love to see a polar bear? Every age group of your family is going to love that experience in a way that, you know, museums don't necessarily, right? There are other,
They don't resonate
other
with everyone.
experience. Exactly. But I think that a lot about expedition cruising is so
think so.
universally appealing.
I think that's true. And I would say also that it's a really good place for single travelers. I think single travelers think of a small ship as a place where they're going to feel isolated. And instead, expedition travel is meant to have communal experience. So you have someone who might be traveling by themselves, but they're not going to be isolated. You're not booking a table for dinner. You don't have to talk to anybody, but you're sharing the same experiences every day. You're automatically brought into the fold, and you become a friend and a colleague of everybody that's there.
Right. Which, frankly, I think is true of many small ship environments. Just because there are so few other travelers, there is that sense of community that larger ships don't have. But the expedition, the fact that you're almost embarking on a shared experience of like, oh, we're all going together on the Zodiac, and it's not about who's paired up with whom.
No,
right?
You're right. It's the big adventure, and you come back at the end of the day, and you're all excited, and you all have something that has been shared amongst you, and you end up knowing everyone's names with whom you've associated during the day. You end up having friends that you meet on the ship, and it's not difficult for that to happen, and there's nothing forced about it. It's just part of what the experience brings.
Any other myths to break, or frequently asked questions?
One of the frequently asked questions we get is, we're like, it's seasick. It's a small ship. Tell me about seasickness. And of course, this can be universal wherever we go in the world, but the Drake Passage is the one that you get often when you talk about Antarctica. And the myth, I would say, is that people think small ship, absolutely terrible. It's going to feel every single wave that we take. And I think that with seasickness in general, it doesn't matter the size of the ship. It matters where you are in the world, how your body handles it, the prevailing conditions, and we have great predictors of those conditions now, so we can tell people. And the size of the ship is a piece of it that really doesn't come into play. And with a smaller ship, you can also get into smaller areas and hide from weather. So
Right, get away from the heavy seas.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of people don't realize how much technology has come into stabilization.
No question.
So not just expedition ships, but many ships. The stabilization technology is so advanced now that really, even with pretty heavy seas, a lot of the stabilization, you don't feel it anyway. And that is,
Yes.
you know, and as you say, with a small expedition ship, you can actually get into, say, a secluded cove and kind of hide away from those winds or something like that. So it makes it much,
We have
much
opportunity,
different.
yeah.
Exactly. So what would be the thing that you would say to somebody who's still on the fence about trying an expedition cruise?
I would say that if you are someone who either you've chosen a place in the world that's hard for you to get to on your own, or you've never tried cruising but you're curious about what a ship experience might be, it is so worth giving it a shot, because you're not going to feel like you're on a traditional cruise. We're not going to have the casinos. We're not going to have the big floor shows. Some people want that, and that is wonderful. There is an opportunity for that elsewhere. But what we can offer is knowledgeable people who really genuinely care that you have an amazing experience. We can offer great service, we can offer amazing luxury, but in that we can also get you to these places and let you connect with wildlife, let you connect with scenic beauty and geology and cultural history and Viking history and all of these things that make the world so rich. This opens up a world of possibilities to people.